Everything begins with Zijin, a passionate otaku who was deeply engrossed in reading her favorite novel. However, her excitement crumbled when she reached the tragic ending. The protagonist, after enduring humiliation and mistreatment, met an unjust death. Frustrated, she left a comment full of indignation directed at the author. "I can't believe you killed the protagonist. This ruined my night." To her surprise, the author replied almost instantly, "If you don't like the ending, why don't you become the protagonist yourself?" That response only fueled her anger. She slammed her computer forcefully, and immediately, the screen began to flicker in a strange way. A sudden dizziness overtook her. Before she could react, her vision became blurry and the world around her faded into darkness. Zijin woke up in an unfamiliar room feeling extremely dizzy and with a strange sensation in her body. When she turned, she discovered a man sleeping next to her. Panic seized her mind, thinking that maybe she had gotten drunk and ended up in a night of debauchery with him. Before she could gather her thoughts, she heard voices coming from the hallway. She listened closely and, to her horror, recognized her ex-boyfriend's voice. He was talking to someone, his lover Flor, explaining that he had drugged her and left her with Wang, intending for her to become pregnant. His plan was to take advantage of the situation to get a large sum of money. Flor voiced her concern, reminding him that Wang was not only an important figure in China, but also a cruel and ruthless man. She was afraid that he would find out what had happened and take revenge. However, her ex-boyfriend didn't seem worried, convinced that the one who would suffer Wang's revenge would be Zijin, since she was the only one involved in the situation. In that instant, everything made sense. Zijin realized that she had entered the world of the novel she was reading. Now she was the protagonist. The cruel fate that had outraged her so much was about to repeat itself, but this time with her own body and her own life at stake. Fear drove her to act. She got up quickly and fled the hotel before Wang woke up. A month later, sitting on the examination table at the clinic, Zijin felt her heart pounding as she listened to the doctor's diagnosis. The confirmation of her pregnancy left her in shock. Everything was happening exactly as in the novel. Desperate to change her fate, she decided to get rid of the baby. However, her hope crumbled when the doctor informed her that her body was too weak to withstand the surgery. The feeling of being trapped in a story she couldn't escape became even more suffocating. As she left, Zijin discovered that her ex-boyfriend and Feng were waiting for her. Remembering that the protagonist of the novel was blind, she decided to pretend to have that disability so as not to arouse suspicion. When they noticed her pregnancy, they immediately took her to the Wang family's mansion. Upon arrival, the bodyguard announced that the woman with whom Wang had spent the night was expecting a child. The family demanded 1 million yuan to cover medical expenses, but Wang, with obvious sarcasm, implied that what they really wanted was 10 million in exchange for not getting rid of the baby. To everyone's surprise, the grandmother handed over 50 million and proposed organizing a wedding between Wang and Ziyin, insisting that the child should be born with a respectable status within the Guo family. Meanwhile, Feng and the ex-boyfriend pretended to be Ziyin's relatives in order to keep the money. Feng doubted that they would actually be given 1 million yuan, but her accomplice was confident, trusting in the immense wealth of the Guo family. Ziyin knew that if she officially joined Wang's family, she would end up dead, just as it happened in the novel. That's why, as soon as she had the chance, she escaped from Feng and her ex-boyfriend. Desperate, she hid in a van without noticing that inside was Wang, covered in blood and wearing a grim expression. Before she could react, he threatened her with a knife. At that moment, he recognized her as the mother of his child. Ziyin, in an attempt to save herself, revealed to him that it had been her ex-boyfriend who had drugged her and sent her to his room. She explained that at first she wanted to get rid of the baby, but her ex wouldn't allow it and took her to the mansion. Wang looked at her coldly and warned her that if he found out she was lying, he would kill her. With no other choice, he took her with him. Upon arriving at the mansion, Ziyin had to face the hostility of the family. Her little brother and her stepmother tried to intimidate her, but she defended herself, claiming that, being blind, she hadn't noticed their presence before hitting them. The grandmother, witnessing the scene, assured her that from that moment on, if anyone bothered her, she should inform her immediately. Later, Wang took her to his room and presented her with 2 documents: a prenuptial agreement and a confidentiality agreement. However, Ziyin refused to sign them. Firmly, she made it clear that she would only have the baby if she wasn't forced to get married. She also demanded to live separately from him and, once the child was born, she would hand the baby over to him. Wang let out a mocking laugh and let her know that she was in no position to negotiate. Unfazed, Ziyin replied that in that case, she wouldn't have the baby. Amused by her boldness, Wang looked at her intently and asked if she was threatening him. Then, with a confident and cruel voice, he told her that if she truly wanted her freedom, he himself would take care of ending the pregnancy right then and there. Ziyin knew that Wang was capable of carrying out his threat, so, with no other options, she ended up agreeing. Later, she decided that she didn't want to share a room with him. With the intention of finding another place to sleep, she went out to look for an empty room in the enormous mansion. However, Wang intercepted her before she could get too far. When she confronted him, she made it clear that she had no intention of sleeping with him, but Wang reminded her that, as his wife, she was expected to fulfill her duties. Without giving her a chance to respond, he took her back to the room and, instead of letting her rest on the bed, forced her to sit on the floor while he read her a story. The next morning, Wang found her fast asleep, clinging to most of the blanket. He was about to wake her when he heard her mumble in her sleep about how much she missed her grandparents. For a moment, his expression softened and instead of disturbing her rest, he simply stroked her gently. The moment was interrupted when his bodyguard entered the room and asked them to come down for breakfast. During breakfast, Wang's grandparents made an important request. They had to prevent the truth about the pregnancy from getting out. Revealing that everything had happened because they were drugged and spent a night together would only bring a scandal that would tarnish the family's reputation. The grandfather, proud of Wang, commented with a smile that it was incredible how, on his first night with a woman, he managed to get her pregnant. On the other hand, an important fact about Wang was revealed. Despite his current position within the Wu family, he was not a blood heir. He had been an orphan until, at the age of 20, the Wu family adopted him, completely changing his fate. Later, one of the mansion's maids revealed a crucial detail to Wang's stepmother. The grandmother planned to make Wang's son the universal heir of the family as soon as he was born. Consumed by envy and greed, the stepmother felt she had to act. She would not allow that child to take away what, in her view, rightfully belonged to her own son. She waited for the right moment and tampered with her son's electric toy car so that it would crash into Ziyin. The impact made her lose her balance and fall to the ground, hitting herself hard. Before she could react, the woman lunged at her and pressed down on her abdomen cruelly, ignoring Ziyin's attempts to stop her. Terrified and filled with rage, Ziyin warned her that she would tell Wang about what had happened, but the stepmother dismissed her threat. She was convinced that Wang had no interest whatsoever in the children, and that, if it were up to him, he would force Ziyin to have an abortion. She was certain that, instead of punishing her, Wang would thank her for taking care of the problem. Before she could continue her attack, Wang appeared. With a voice full of confidence, the stepmother tried to justify herself, insisting that she was only helping him. To her surprise, Wang thanked her. Ziyin felt fear wash over her. Was that psychopath really going to let her die right there? However, before she could get an answer, darkness closed in around her and she lost consciousness. The last thing she managed to see was Wang's silhouette moving toward her stepmother with a cold look in his eyes. As unconsciousness overtook her, Wang picked her up in his arms and without taking his eyes off his stepmother, ordered his bodyguard to take care of her. When Ziyin wakes up, she is surprised to find herself alive, since the protagonist is supposed to be dead. At that moment, the maid whom Ziyin trusts the most appears. Ziyin confides in her that she can actually see. Just then, Wang appears behind the door. So she deliberately starts saying that she has been in love with Wang since she was a child, because one day she was dazzled by a painting Wang had made when he was little, and from that moment on, she knew she wanted to marry him. Wang bursts into her room. He asks her if that's true, and she says yes. He starts to question everything. So he tests her by bringing a piece of glass close to her eye. Ziyin, her heart pounding, gave him her affirmative answer. At that moment, Wang took her in his arms and kissed her desperately, as if he were afraid of losing her at any second. However, their moment of intimacy was abruptly interrupted. A maid burst into the room to inform him that his stepmother had disappeared. Wang, indifferent, replied that it wasn't his problem. But the woman insisted. His father had arrived and was demanding to see him. The atmosphere instantly grew tense. The relationship between Wang and his adoptive father was far from cordial. With a cold gesture, he drew his weapon and, unhurriedly, announced that he was on his way. When they finally met, Wang's father wasted no time in accusing him of being involved in his wife's disappearance. Wang, unfazed, reminded him of all the harm the woman had caused Ziying. However, his father showed not the slightest interest in hearing any explanations. For Wang, if the stepmother had killed Ziying, then there would simply be two corpses to mourn. In a firm voice, he warned Wang that he had to return his stepmother before sunset. Otherwise, he would lose any right to his mother's inheritance. The argument escalated, and when Wang tried to leave with Ziying, his father's men blocked his way. The tension reached its peak when Wang was about to draw his weapon. But Ziying reacted first. Quickly, she pretended to feel unwell. She clung to him and, with a look of distress, begged him to take her to the hospital. Her performance was convincing enough that they were allowed to leave the mansion without further confrontation. Once they were free, Wang took her to a safe house, a place where her father would never be able to find them. Wang carried Ziying in his arms, but she reminded him that there was no need to keep pretending anymore. With a mischievous smile, he pretended to let her go, making her cling to him with a small cry. They both ended up laughing at the situation. When they reached the room, Wang laid her down on the bed and, unable to restrain himself, kissed her urgently. However, Zijin stopped him, reminding him that because of the pregnancy, they shouldn't do it. But Wang insisted, moving closer to her with a defiant look. In an attempt to push him away, Zijin reacted by hitting him. He looked at her suspiciously and asked if she was lying to him, if she actually didn't like him. Quickly, she averted her gaze and pretended to be indifferent, causing him to back off. The next morning, Zijin had an encounter with Wang's grandmother. The old woman, with a serious expression, asked for his help so that her grandson could recover what rightfully belonged to him. It was at that moment that Zijin discovered the truth. Wang was not an orphan. His mother had died in a traffic accident when he was only 5 years old. After that tragic event, the boy disappeared and was sent to Slaughterhouse D, a cruel fate from which few managed to survive. 15 years passed before he was finally found, when he was already 20. The grandmother confessed that since Zijin's arrival, she had noticed a change in her grandson. For the first time, Wang was treating someone differently. Aware of this, she asked Zijin to help him become a true heir. Zijin, without hesitation, refused. With a firm voice, she revealed that she did not belong to that world. The old woman studied her for a moment and, with an air of determination, made an unexpected offer. If Zijin agreed to help Wang, she would make sure that she didn't have to marry her grandson. Faced with that promise, Zijin agreed. When she arrived home that night, Zijin was surprised to see Wang waiting for her. His intense gaze reflected impatience, as if he had been waiting for a long time. He seemed to want answers. Zijin explained to him that she had been with the grandmother, mentioning that she had heard about his past. As she said this, she approached him and hugged him gently, trying to show understanding. However, Wang reacted with coldness and tension, unaccustomed to that kind of affection. Later, Zijin told him about the struggle that had broken out in the family over the future of her baby. Everyone wanted to secure the position of heir, and she suggested that he take control in order to protect the child in the future. Wang seemed amused by the contradiction in her words, recalling that at first she had wanted to get rid of the pregnancy. Despite her doubts, Zijin insisted on staying by his side, hugging him once again. Wang, uncomfortable with the closeness, watched her in silence for a moment before moving away. She knew living with him wouldn't be easy, and she made it clear that this wasn't just a game. Zijin thought that her mission would be impossible. Just at that moment, she received a call from Wang's grandmother. With a worried tone, the elderly woman informed her that Wang had not brought his stepmother back, which meant that in a matter of days he and his father would be at odds. She asked him to intervene before it was too late. Determined, Ziyin went looking for Wang, and found him at a private club where he seemed to be relaxing. The security guards blocked her way, claiming that every night many women came looking for him, but he always turned them down. However, Wang's friend noticed her presence, and, thinking she was a married woman, assumed that Wang was having an affair with her. He warned her that Wang was in a bad mood when he woke up, so it would be better to wait for him to wake up on his own. Resigned, Ziyin took a seat and decided to wait. Meanwhile, inside the club, a woman tried to kiss Wang while he was sleeping. However, he woke up at the last second, and, with a sudden gesture, shoved her face into a bucket full of ice, causing laughter among those present. At that moment, Ziyin approached and asked him to speak in private. With his characteristic sarcasm, Wang told her that she was very brave to show up in a place like that. She remarked that he didn't seem to enjoy his life, and that maybe it was time to change it. In response, Wang grabbed a handful of ice and threw it on the floor, signaling to his friends to do the same. With a defiant smile, he proposed a deal to her. If she managed to walk on the ice, he would grant her the chance to be heard. Ziyin immediately refused, arguing that she was pregnant. But instead of being moved, Wang became irritated. He reproached her, saying that just because she had helped him once, she was now acting arrogant. One of his friends intervened, demanding that she obey Wang and, taking it even further, ordered her to take off her shoes. Laughter and mocking shouts filled the place, humiliating her. Ziyin tried to stay calm and bent down to put her shoes back on, but at that moment, the man took advantage and slipped pieces of ice under her clothes. That was the last straw for Wang. Without warning, he smashed a bottle over the man's head, plunging the place into a deathly silence. Then, he took Ziyin and told her he would take her home, but she, furious, slapped him. The slap caught him by surprise, and far from getting angry, he smiled with a mix of amusement and irritation. He tells her that she has really become brave. Wang lifted her roughly onto his shoulder. Instead of hurting her, he threw her onto the seat of his car and leaned over her, pinning her down with his weight before kissing her desperately. Ziyin's body reacted immediately, but not in the way he expected. A wave of nausea washed over her, and she brought a hand to her mouth, trying to hold it back. Wang stopped when he noticed her reaction. His eyes darkened with anger and disgust. She could barely murmur that it was because of the pregnancy. Wang didn't believe her. With a gesture of contempt, he opened the car door and, without another word, pushed her out, leaving her alone in the middle of the road. It wasn't long before the figure of a man emerged from the shadows. Wang's stepmother's brother had been waiting for an opportunity like this and didn't hesitate to take advantage of it. Without giving her time to react, he grabbed her by force and dragged her to a van that was waiting nearby. Meanwhile, Wang drove on with a frown, his mind still caught up in the fury of the moment. That's when he noticed that Ziyin had forgotten her phone in the car. Something inside him tightened. A bad feeling washed over him, forcing him to turn the wheel and head back to the place where he had left her. When he arrived, all he found was a single shoe abandoned on the ground. His heart raced and his blood boiled instantly. An uncontrollable rage took hold of him as he scanned the area with his eyes. It didn't take him long to spot the van that was transporting her, and, without a second thought, he sped toward it. 5 men got out with Ziyin. Before they could react, Wang burst in violently. Unfazed by being outnumbered, he threw himself at them, striking with precision and brutality. Ziyin took advantage of the distraction to untie herself. Her gaze swept over the chaos around her until she saw one of the men raise a metal bar behind Wang. An unfamiliar instinct drove her to move without thinking. She stepped between them just as the blow came down. The impact was direct. Wang caught her in his arms before she hit the ground. His expression changed instantly. The fury turned into anguish. At the hospital, the doctor explains that, due to the blow she received, Ziyin has regained her sight. She had lost her vision after an incident, and now, as she opens her eyes, her world seems to be reborn. When she does, Wang's friend, worried, asks her if she remembers him. Ziyin pretends not to recognize him and, with a gentle smile, replies that his name is Wang. This mysterious answer stirs a pang of jealousy in Wang, who, seeing that the first face Ziyin sees is his friend's, can't help but feel upset. On impulse, he grabs her face, looks at her intently, and tells her, "I'm Wang." Ziyin, with a mix of sweetness and humor, tells him that he's very handsome, which makes him nervous. Wang's friend doesn't miss this reaction. Noticing the tension between them, he can't help but laugh. Knowing Wang's personality, he decides to leave. Ziyin asks Wang if he's still upset with her for having slapped him. In response, Wang kisses her passionately, as if wanting to erase any misunderstanding. Then, gently, he asks her if she is still willing to help him recover his inheritance. She, resolutely, answers yes, without hesitation. At that moment, she hugs him and asks what made him change his mind. Wang, with a deep look, confesses to her that after everything that happened, he realized that in order to protect himself and those he loves, he needs to have power. Zijin, thoughtful for a moment, tells him that she has an idea. Later, the stepmother arrives and presents herself to Wang's father with a heartbreaking story. She reveals to him that she was thrown onto a hill full of snakes and wild dogs that attacked her. In an almost pleading tone, she asks him to avenge what happened. The father, furious and ready to retaliate, prepares to act, but just at that moment, Wang appears, apparently injured. However, it is all part of a deception. He is made up to fake the wound, together with Zijin. Both of them tell the father that Wang risked his life to rescue the stepmother. The story is so moving that the father, blinded by emotion, believes it. Zijin, with a look of restrained indignation, kneels before the father and tells him that their family has always treated Wang unfairly, that they have judged him mercilessly. He lies by claiming that Wang was falsely accused of the stepmother's disappearance, when in reality it was he who saved her. In the end, the father, with a sigh of resignation, decides to put Wang in charge of the entertainment company. He tells him that if he manages to increase profits within 2 months, he will grant him the company entirely. Later, Zijin takes Wang to have a shower and gives him a special oil to remove his makeup. With a determined look, Wang grabs her by the arm and playfully tells her that she will be the one to clean him in the bathroom. As he undresses, his eyes remain fixed on her with intensity. This makes Zijin very nervous, so Wang, to ease the tension, decides to get into the bathtub. Meanwhile, he tells her that she is an excellent actress. Zijin, smiling, replies that in this world you have to be shameless with shameless people. Suddenly, Wang grabs her by the neck and, with an intense look, asks her if she has been acting with him. In the end, he murmurs that it doesn't matter, as long as she doesn't do it in the future. As Zijin begins to wash him, when her hands brush against his chest, Wang pulls her closer to his face. This makes Zijin feel a strong sense of disgust. With an uncomfortable expression, she tells him that she is allergic to men. Her statement infuriates him, and visibly annoyed, he orders her to stop flirting with him and leave. The next day, Zijin tries to cook for Wang, but realizes she doesn't know how. After several failed attempts, Wang decides to step in and cook for both of them. Zijin watches in surprise as he handles the utensils skillfully, a talent she did not expect from him. Remembering the grandmother's words, who had mentioned that Wang didn't like to cook, he realizes that he probably had to learn to do it as a means of survival. Wang, with a calm smile, tells him not to look at him with pity. Ziyin, unable to help herself, praises him for the food and tells him he looked incredibly handsome while cooking. Ziyin, concerned about Wang's well-being, asks him to eat more to regain his strength. In a protective gesture, he lifts her into his arms and asks if she doubts his abilities. With a confident smile, he assures her that he has enough strength to carry her to bed if necessary. The next day, Wang starts working at the entertainment company with Ziyin as his secretary. They soon begin production on a television drama. The drama's leading actress Chun shows up and doesn't miss the chance to deliberately flirt with Wang. However, Wang rejects her immediately, making it clear that he's not interested. Afterwards, he asks Ziyin if she got jealous, to which she firmly replies that she did not. Later, an actor tries to take advantage of Ziyin. Fortunately, she manages to escape the situation, but when she tells what happened, the actor lies, claiming that she was the one who threw herself into his arms. Wang, furious, pulls her out of the room and with a serious look, orders her to cover her ears if she hears a lot of noise. After giving the actor a beating, he takes her with him. However, he still seems to doubt her. In a somewhat cold tone, he confesses to her that there are cameras in that room to record what really happened and asks if she's afraid of being found out. This accusation deeply offends her. After reviewing the footage, Wang realizes his mistake and feels ashamed when he sees that Ziyin was telling the truth. Hurt by his lack of trust, Ziyin tells him that she doesn't trust him either. It is at that moment that she realizes Wang's doubts have affected her more than she expected, and she becomes aware that she has started to develop feelings for him. However, she decides to focus on the mission her grandmother entrusted to her. Wang, feeling that he has made a huge mistake, tells her that now, in this world, she is the only one he trusts. The next day, during the press conference announcing the new drama, a malicious rumor begins to circulate, accusing Wang of harassing the lead actress. However, Ziyin, with solid evidence, quickly refutes the accusation, thus saving her husband's reputation. The truth comes to light, revealing that everything was orchestrated by the stepmother, who is finally exposed. This provokes Wang's father's anger, who, furious, transfers all of the stepmother's shares to his son. Meanwhile, Ziyin, seeing the drama's success, can't help but feel happy about the achievement, but is also worried about the situation. She expresses to Wang her concern about his future. Since the marriage has become public, he fears that this could affect his second marriage if he decides to marry another woman. Wang, grateful for her concern, smiles at her and assures her that the situation is under control. In the end, they kiss, making it clear that despite everything, their relationship has matured. Months later, Ziyin goes into labor. The pain is so intense that she can't help but scream, which makes Wang nervous, as he feels powerless, not being able to do anything to ease her suffering. In his desperation, he grabs a doctor and angrily asks why his wife is screaming so much. The doctor, calmly, explains to him that it is completely normal. Finally, Ziyin gives birth to twins, a girl and a boy, filling the family with joy. After the birth of the twins, instead of going to see his children, Wang runs to Ziyin, worried about her. She, with a weak smile, asks him if he has already seen the children. Wang, staring into her eyes, replies that he hasn't, but he's sure they are beautiful, because she is. Half a month later, Wang tries to be intimate, but Ziyin stops him. He, with a mix of desire and frustration, reminds her that it has been almost a year since that night. Ziyin reminds him that their marriage is just a contract and that in reality, she doesn't matter to him. In a fit of rage, he grabs her by the neck and orders her not to say that again or he will kill her. Ziyin starts to bleed. Alarmed, Wang quickly takes her to the doctor, who reveals that Ziyin suffers from anemia and that her body was severely damaged after childbirth. The doctor explains that she cannot have normal sexual relations, as any infection could be fatal. From that moment on, Wang becomes more attentive and kind to her. However, while they sleep together, a hidden truth is revealed. Ziyin's illness is a lie. She regrets having lied to him, knowing that her fake illness is driving them apart. As the days go by, Wang spends less and less time at home. Worried, Ziyin receives a call from her friend, who reveals that Wang has been frequently visiting nightclubs. She advises her to tell him the truth, that she is not sick, or else some other woman might steal his heart. All of this has been orchestrated by Wang's father. He is upset to see how his son is completely tamed by Ziyin and decides that he no longer wants to give him the chance to be the heir. Ziyin had promised him that she would leave Wang once she gave birth, to prevent her husband from losing what was rightfully his. The father, determined to separate them, sends the doctor to tell Ziyin that her illness is serious, hoping that this will destroy their relationship. One night, Ziyin decides to leave. She leaves a note for Guang in which she reveals that they do not belong to the same world and that she will follow her own path. When Guang reads the letter, he becomes desperate. He runs after her and, in a frenzy, manages to stop the car in which Ziyin is heading to her destination. He asks her why she left him. Ziyin, her voice trembling, replies that she can no longer make him happy and that it is better to move up the agreement and get divorced. In an unexpected turn, Guang confesses that he loves her and that he doesn't care about her illness. He promises that he will be there for her, no matter what happens. But Ziyin, still reluctant to give in, refuses to continue with their marriage. Guang, desperate, speeds up the car, suggesting that it would be better for them both to die than for her to leave him. His anguish is palpable, but Ziyin, with tears in her eyes, assures him that she will not get a divorce. She asks him if he truly loves her, and Guang firmly replies that he does. Thus, the story reaches its climax.